Hi, this is Anand Bhaskar from BKBB, which is an acronym for Bhaskar Ki Business Baatein. This is a channel that normally comes to you with policy analysis, business stories, conversations. But right now at 8:15 in the morning on Saturday, we have BKBB, which is news behind the news. We pick up a few headlines which we think are important. And joining me today are two co-anchors of mine, and they are Manjushri and Natasha. Welcome, both of you. It's good to have both of you here. And we will discuss the following titles that are displayed on the screen. We will discuss the passport situation in India and the controversy it's raked up. We'll discuss El Nino and its impact on India. And finally, we'll talk about why Indian markets are likely to be very choppy now. But before that, do remember that today, this time, our podcast is on Trump. And that's an article you'll find on our Asia Converge website also, in case you want more details on what terrifies Trump. Anyway, let's go back to the stories here. And this time, we will take the first story, which is on, which is basically on India and the impact that we will see. Come in, Natasha.
Hi, sir. Good morning.
Yes.
So, on Wednesday, the 24th of June, the MEA, or the Ministry of External Affairs, stated that the passport is not the sole proof of Indian citizenship. They said rather it is a document that is given to you by the government once the government is satisfied that you are an Indian citizen. They said this passport cannot be used to create nor as a standalone proof of Indian citizenship. So questions arose. What exactly does it mean to be an Indian citizen and how can one obtain citizenship status? Well, according to the Citizenship Law of 1955, there are 5 ways through which one can entail citizenship status in India. The first is by birth. So people born between the period of 1950 to 1987 automatically got Indian status through birth. Then from 1987 to 2003, those that have one parent who is of Indian descent qualify for birth by Indian citizenship. And then the next phase from 2003 onwards, they have to have one parent who is an Indian citizenship by birth. And the next one has to be a non-illegal immigrant, right? And then the next one is by descent. So if perhaps you are born abroad, but one parent of yours is an Indian citizen, if they register the birth within 12 months, you will be considered an Indian citizen. The next is by registration. This solely means either through marriage or through ancestry, you can obtain Indian citizenship status. The last one is by naturalization. That means having lived in the country for a period consecutively of 12 months, and by not being an illegal citizen, right? So the question still arises. There are several ways to obtain Indian citizenship, but there is no one unifying document, right? The MEA further came out and clarified that the reason the passport is not viewed as the sole proof of citizenship is because we also do issue passports to other non-nationals of India, for example, in countries like Sri Lanka during times of public interest. So the question still remains. When are we going to have a universal document that signifies citizenship? What are your thoughts on this, sir?
Thanks, Natasha. Very comprehensive. The issue that we are confronted with is that in the last decade, we've had too many controversies about citizenship. We had the CAA, we had the Aadhar as a citizenship card, and we had the SIR, which decided citizenship. And now that you say the passport is no longer valid, it raises two questions. One, the passport has the word of the president given in the first pages. Effectively, you're downgrading the president's authority as far as the passport is concerned. If the passport is a travel document, you give a citizenship to even the neighboring countries. That's not a passport, that's a travel document. Passports are given only to citizens. And if a citizen of India dies overseas, he's sent back to the place the passport came from because it's assumed that this is his citizenship. Although a very small percentage of India has passports, the fact is that the passport is recognized world over as the document for citizenship. By saying the passport is no longer citizenship, the government has muddied the citizenship waters even more. And we are worried that the government wants to give extra authority on deciding citizenship to organizations like SIR or the Ministry of Economic External Affairs, or maybe it will be the ED next time. You are bringing in new parties to decide citizenship, and you've broken up the old procedure, the process which has been there for 60 years without controversy. It's sad, but thanks, Natasha. Let's go to the second story. And the second story is equally worrying for India because it is on the El Nino factor. Come, Manjushri.
So let's begin with what is El Nino in the first place. It is a climatic phenomenon in which the sea surface temperature around the central and eastern Pacific Ocean is unusually warm. So in usual ideal scenarios, strong trade winds push the warm waters from the Pacific waters towards Asia and Australia in the west. And this brings good rainfall to the western region. It also supports India's southwest monsoon winds. However, an El Nino situation means that the trade winds are weak, which means the whole entire normal weather patterns as we know in India are disrupted. And even for Asia, the larger picture is the same. So in India, this means there is a higher chance of below normal monsoon rainfall. This will affect farming patterns and this will also affect water availability and eventually affect the food prices. So the Indian Meteorological Department has already projected a below normal monsoon for India this year, and El Nino is of course one of the key factors. So even though El Nino has been active in India since the beginning of June, what you've seen is India has already recorded a deficit rainfall of 40 to 43 percentage, even though this phenomenon is still in its weak to moderate phase. So which means it has an immediate challenge for the ongoing Kharif season, and if it persists and intensifies further, India's rains could also be weaker for the future months, which means that the Rabi crop season, right, which starts from October and 4 months onwards later, that will also be affected. So, to prepare for this, the government has taken a few measures, like it has activated contingency plans and identified 315 vulnerable districts. It has advised farmers to switch to less water intensive plants like pulses and millets. However, what happens remains to be seen because in 2002 and 2015, previously when we had El Nino years, it had severe effects on the food grain production. However, in 2023, comparatively, we did well because of the better irrigation facilities that we had in place. So, what do you think, sir? What will happen this year?
Thank you, Manjushri, for raising such an important issue. The problem this year is twofold. One, this is going to be one of the worst El Ninos ever. It's the strongest El Nino that we are going to see in the last 150 years. This kind of an El Nino, which is known as Super El Nino, comes once in 150 years. It's going to come at a time when fertilizer prices are already high, fuel prices are high, so it's a triple effect on India's agriculture and India as an economy. And remember, 50% of India's population is in the rural sector, agricultural sector, which means that you'll have dampened consumption, dampened demand, and coupled with unemployment, you will have social unrest. There's one more factor. India's track record in water management has been poor. We still depend on the rains. We've not gone into drip irrigation everywhere. Lots of areas we still have rain-fed farming. And lastly, look at the cities. There are no systems to capture the runoff water and preserve that water. We think water will come from the skies. There's no method to trap water to make sure the water does not run off into the sea. And this is where India is going to suffer enormously. Lastly, remember that India is embarking on its AI venture and is building up huge data banks, data centers. That's a water guzzler. It's a fuel guzzler. So you have high prices of fuel and you have scarcity of water, which could affect the data centers, which could affect market sentiment as well. It's not simple. And thank you, Manjushri, for raising such an important topic. Let's go to the third topic. And the third topic, in a way, is linked to the previous topic, and that is AI centers. We are talking of public issues. We are talking IPOs. Look at the three charts which talk about India's IPO scenario. You have companies which have got high valuations primarily because of their advent into AI. You have many startups coming up and they are creating jobs more than they did last year. And you have a market which is still buoyant and not as depressed as people expected it to be. Step back and you see the AI factor becoming perilous because of what is happening in America. Elon Musk's IPO, the biggest ever, has seen post-issue pricing collapse day after day after day for 3 days. And we think that the aggressive pricing that Elon Musk put up will affect many investors and many fund houses, which means less money into India's stock market. India's stock market won't fall because it is protected by SIP, it's protected by Indian fund managers. Effectively, you'll have an artificial market pricing. And although there are many startups, these startups are built on debt. We see poor debt servicing and we see a kind of a crisis emerging in India. So you have high capital outgo on AI, you have high debt-related issues coming up because of the startups, and finally, you have a market where pricing is determined by the SIPs, government institutions, and funding constraints. You have too much of money chasing too few stocks. What will that mean for the markets? Well, FIs will stay away, which means you can expect FIs to be a little careful about India because of valuations. Will that bring in foreign investors? Yes, if the government changes its policies. If government doesn't do it, we'll continue having unemployment, we'll continue having a crisis, an economic crisis, in addition to the El Nino factor. Anyway, that takes us to the end of today's session. Thank you for tuning in. And yes, do remember to click the subscribe button, click the like button, because that helps us enormously with the YouTube algorithms. And most important, do tell all your friends about us. That's the way we grow. We are growing, but we'd like to grow faster. And thank you for joining in. And do remember to tune in next Saturday once again when we bring you news behind the news. And don't forget to watch our podcast on Trump and why Trump is terrified today. Take care. Have a great week ahead. See you next week. Bye-bye.